We're going to go ahead and start our introductions with Jenna Klein from Atlassian. Jenna, could you tell us about yourself a little bit?
Hi, thanks. Yeah, everyone, I'm Jenna Klein from Atlassian. We are a software company that makes collaboration tools like Jira and Trello. I am head of IT strategy and planning, which is a fancier title than it actually is. I help make sure that IT is running smoothly, things like our workforce plan and our fiscal year planning, our strategic roadmaps, manager enablement, et cetera. I've been at Atlassian for about 2.5 years, and I'm super excited to be here today.
Thank you for joining us. And equally pleased to have Thomas Donnelly from BetterCloud. Thomas, could you give us a little bit about yourself and your company as well?
Sure. So I am the CIO at BetterCloud. My job is to enable company strategy through technology. I also manage security and compliance and customer support. I've been at BetterCloud for about 6 months now, so I actually came in during the pandemic, which was very interesting. BetterCloud is a SaaS management platform to help you discover your apps like Shadow IT, to manage your applications through automation. And it also helps you secure your applications.
Excellent. And I onboarded during the pandemic times as well, so I can totally understand where you're coming from. And I'm honored as well to have Jolene DeCourt with us from Dropbox. Jolene, could you give us a little bit about yourself as well?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Jolene DeCourt. I am head of ITS Corporate Infrastructure Engineering and Operations at Dropbox. It's a little bit of a mouthful. But ultimately, I'm responsible for the tools and technology for our Virtual First initiative and really helping Dropbox create an enlightened way of working. So our passion is creating collaboration tools for everyone, not just your traditional file sync and share, but all the other pieces that we need to be successful, especially in this virtual world.
Excellent. And thank you for joining us as well. And thanks again to everybody. So we'll go ahead and dig right into this. We have a series of questions. We'll go ahead and start. So we'll do the first one here. What does your company's work environment look like this year? And do you anticipate any changes as companies are permitted to open their offices again? And I'll go ahead and start with Jolene on this one.
So I, like both Frank and Thomas, started during the pandemic as well. So I would say we can feel the pain tied to that big transition when we went from working in an office to working from home. In October of last year, Dropbox announced that we are going virtual first. So what is virtual first? Virtual first means the majority of work will be done at home. So we're allowing Dropboxers to work the majority of their time at home, but we're still leaving time for them to come and do collaborative work in what we're calling our studios, which is a collaborative office space. So we're also redesigning the office space to enable that collaborative work. So it's a little bit different than a hybrid model, or just a going back to the office. And it's not fully remote either. It's that perfect combination that gives that human experience, but still allows everyone to do their best work.
Thanks. And Jenna, the same kind of question to you. What's going on your side?
Very similar to Jolene and Dropbox, we announced in, I think, August that we were going to be a remote company as well. So we came out early and bold with that statement. We had a large population of Atlassian already remote. One of our acquisitions was a remote first company. And so we had those practices already about what it took to support a remote company. But we came out with an initiative that we call Team Anywhere, which is empowering employees to make a decision about where they want to work. And so if they want to work from home, if they want to work when traveling, we're empowering them to do that. And we're putting behind that as much enablement of that employee decision as we can, so that if they want to look at what happens if they move to Montana, we've created a process where they can use Jira to look up what what that would mean to them, or if they want to move internationally, that's an option as well. So we went pretty bold with that. This year, we have started reopening some of our offices. We are global, and of course, country to country is very different right now during a pandemic. So we have started reintroducing some offices to be open to allow that. And we're experimenting with what does that mean now that employees are coming back? How do we need to reconfigure, et cetera? But going forward, we will be a digital first company.
Perfect. So kind of building off that one as well, how do you see a hybrid work environment differing from a fully remote setup? And I'll start with Thomas on this one, actually.
Yeah, so there are definitely some things that are really tough when you have people fully remote or, kind of half in office and half remote. And so it's really made us just take a step back and reevaluate a lot of the tools that we use in the environment. We've really needed to focus on getting consistent communications to both hybrid and remote workers. That's been a huge focus. We've increased our all hands meetings to twice a week to make sure that everyone is getting all the information they need. We also have done a lot to make sure that employee engagement is equitable because, some people that are in a specific office or in a hub location, they can go out and do, after the pandemic, they'll be able to go out and do things and kind of interact with their teams socially outside of work, which is harder to do if you're in a hybrid work environment. And so we have to be creative in how we facilitate those needs and give those people the same benefit, just in a different way. The other one is just really driving home our cultural values. We were kind of an in-office culture before the pandemic. And so as new employees come in, it's important for us to reinforce those cultural values. And then I would say the other big change that we've really kind of endured is just getting a little bit more rigorous with how we manage projects and trying to, making that, that change to asynchronous work and how we can still coordinate and meet deadlines and still, keep the business running smoothly.
No, that's really solid thoughts. And I've seen the issues with asynchronous work as well. It can be challenging. So along the lines of that as well, how would the hybrid work tech stack differ from one needed to support, say, a fully remote environment? And again, I'll start with Thomas on this one. And what would some of those considerations be when, I guess, taken into account as you build that?
Yeah, so I think one of the big challenges is ensuring that when people are collaborating and you have remote workers and, a combination of both hybrid and on-premise workers, is that they are all having a quality experience and making sure that you're getting the tools in place to give people a level playing field. And so an example of this would be at the beginning of the year when we were still kind of in offices at the beginning of the pandemic, but we weren't necessarily traveling. We were doing some planning sessions and we made the conscious decision that, hey, should we have the facilitator go to one office? Should we have multiple offices? But some people were in Montana, some people were in Florida at this point. And so we just made the decision that we're all going to be remote. We're not going to have, pods of people at a specific office because we thought that would just create, it wouldn't be a level playing field going into strategic planning. And so we're very conscious about making sure that everyone feels like, if we're in a meeting, if we're in a strategic planning session, that everyone is on a level playing field. And that'll be a challenge going forward as we open back up.
Agree. And Jolene, same question as well. Hybrid work stack, how does it differ from, say, the fully remote stack?
You have new challenges to face. So with our virtual first initiative, right now for the most part, we're all at home, which means when we're in a meeting or we're collaborating, similar to what Thomas said, it is a level playing field. We all feel like our voices are heard. So when we go back to, and we're going back to a studio, how do you make sure that people that can't be in the studio have that same voice? We can't go back into a conference room where there are people drawing on a whiteboard and the people remotely can't see it. We can't go back into a conference room that's designed with, a couple screens and the tables right against the wall. We have to create this inclusive experience that layers together all of the tech stack that we have from a collaboration perspective, right? So it's not just you have Slack and you have G Suite and you have Zoom and you have Miro. You're creating, and Dropbox, of course. So you're creating all of them together and creating a cohesive experience that enables that collaboration. So how we're thinking about that differently is really focusing on creating the solution, not just deploying another tool. It's not about a tool, it's solving the overall solution set.
Makes sense. And just a couple notes for the audience. As we're talking, if you do have questions, please put them up on the board. We will definitely take a look at the end here. And for this next one, actually, I'm going to be asking the panel, and then also for the audience, if they have any suggestions or thoughts, there's a spot on the board for it. How do you empower your teams to give them more flexibility in how and when they work? What methodologies, approaches do you use to make sure IT is aligned with other teams and business leaderships? And I'll start with Jenna on this one, because there's a lot there to unpack.
There's a lot there to unpack, is exactly right. I mean, and no one knows more than IT people, I think, about all the interconnectedness of these decisions that we had to make as we were moving to a remote workforce. So as I mentioned, our initiative was called Team Anywhere, because it wasn't just about working from home or working from your base location, but really empowering employees to make a decision for themselves about what's best for them and their families, and where they should work. And we wanted that to really be an employee decision as much as possible. So we took that approach to deliver a great experience first for our employees. It's when we were deciding this, the way that we put together even the team that was looking to make these decisions, it was built by Atlassians for Atlassians. So we didn't bring any external folks in to help guide us. We got a team together to first get us over that initial, hey, we're in a pandemic, how are we going to deal with this? And then morph into, all right, we made this big decision. What are we going to do now? And so we've built tools and tried to automate things as much as possible to give employees the data that they need to make those decisions as we're moving forward. We just launched recently even a compensation estimator that allows them to go in and figure out what the impact would be to them as they make these decisions, built on Jira, of course. And we had pretty amazing curiosity even in that space. And so now we're already starting to see people make these decisions as they move forward. We were a global and supporting some remote employees already. So our tech stack was pretty collaborative to begin with, but we're really seeing some great adoption of even more interesting tools now that we're moving to this remote first space.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. And I guess to Jolene, the same question as well, more on the methodology approach side, did you have a methodology or approach that you utilized to kind of build that out?
Yes. So we looked at some very tactical things first. So we had to say, how do we stop everyone from being in all of these meetings, right? You've all read the stories. Zoom fatigue is real, meeting fatigue is real. So let's really build a strategy around empowering our teams to work their best. And as part of that, we created core collaboration hours, which are a block of hours that's where meetings are held. Outside of that is focus time. And that allows teams that's when the work really happens, right? You're not in a meeting. And then we've given them additional tools like the power to decline a meeting or the power to flex for friends. So saying, yes, I will go to this meeting outside of our core collaboration hours. We're also doing things like, you mentioned asynchronous work earlier, empowering asynchronous work in a little bit different way with global teams, as you all have had to deal with. That's one of the biggest challenges is, I don't want my team in Dublin to have to be on a meeting on the West Coast. So utilizing our own tool set like Capture, but also now we're deploying Miro to help with that same challenge, and allowing for asynchronous work to happen. So I can do a quick video, do work, and then let my Dublin team comment on that. And we're making decisions faster and moving quicker by actually enabling this asynchronous work.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question we have here is, what are the standards of remote work that you would like to keep as we move away from mandatory remote setup? So I will pass this one to Thomas.
Yeah, so one thing that I want to see continued is, we are really encouraging people to redesign work to be asynchronous, because I think that it just really reduces stress and helps people balancing the juggling act of remote work, that you don't have a strict schedule of meetings that you have to be throughout the day. So if you have to go pick up the children from school, so those are some of the things, definitely, is to just continue encouraging that. The other one would just be continue to take a deliberate approach to how we work. What this is really kind of built into our organization is that if you just let people kind of go without any direction, they'll start doing something that's not really sustainable. And like to Jolene's point about like the meeting mania, is that people just, will pack up with 30-minute Zoom calls, and then after 2 months, they're burnt out. So really taking the deliberate approach and thinking about what you're doing, why we're building meetings, the reasons that we have meetings, and then getting feedback from, if these meetings are useful or if we should kind of change the format. So I would really like to see those types of things just continue as we go back to the office.
No, and thank you. And, I guess, Jenna, the same question as well. What would you like to see preserved?
The asynchronous thing makes me laugh, because we're really asking folks to think asynchronous first. What can we do? Do we need this meeting? I'm actually one of those weird people who loves meetings. I don't want to sit in this room by myself for too long. I get a little lonely, but it does cause some fatigue, right? And especially with time zone. I mean, you can go remote work, but you just can't change the rotation of the earth. So we really need to be conscious about all the different time zones. Even on my team, I'm supporting 5 different time zones. And within my own team on a day-to-day basis. And so we have to be thoughtful about that. And so being asynchronous when we can has been a main focus. We're big users of our own tool, Confluence. Of course, we churn out about 5,000 new Confluence pages a month, and it's not including comments and other things. So it's got a real rich history documented there. We can collaborate on the page, and what it does for our new hires, I'm thinking about Thomas and Jolene here, onboarding during a remote time. When we had all that rich history, new hires can come in and they can read. They don't just hear anecdotally about decisions that were made or how projects were going or big workforce strategy things that we're putting in place. And so that asynchronous, it develops over time and builds that library of institutional knowledge for everybody to be able to access and just give us all a common ground to start working from.
No, thank you. And I'm hearing asynchronous a lot. It seems to be the way to move. For this one, Jolene, what are the most pressing challenges of managing IT right now? And how do you solve that problem with shadow IT? Oh, you're muted.
I'm muted. You can't get through a meeting without one person. One of the most pressing challenges we have right now is with everyone at home, they're trying to solve their own problems. They're being scrappy. They're trying to be innovative with the challenges that they face on a daily basis. So really, we need a way to make sure that we're hearing the feedback that we're getting from everyone, so they're not solving their own problems. because if they're out solving their own problems, they're buying more software, they're out there doing something for themselves, which is actually causing more siloed work, which takes away from this fantastic level playing field that we actually have with remote work. Which when they're buying software, then they have to support software, which then you run into shadow IT. And you run into a whole host of other issues. One of the biggest ones being knowledge management and how we find information, for example. When you have 4 different platforms where you have data, how do you bring that all together? And so you can create this rich, cohesive subset of information that is simple to find and simple to use. That's one of the biggest challenges we see today, and we're really focused on fixing.
No, it's a challenge for everyone, believe me. And Thomas, the same question on your side. How, what are the challenges you're facing in, around shadow IT as well?
Yeah, so Jolene kind of hit it the nail on the head. It's just ensuring that people aren't creating these operational and data silos, and securing those SaaS applications, since I'm also on the security side. And so to me, like the modern, IT CIO role has kind of somewhat evolved in coordinating, these efforts of pushing technology across the organization. We have this concept of democratizing the idea around IT, but centralizing the execution. And the way that we do that is we've kind of changed the support model to where we embed IT practitioners in every department. And so we're hearing about people's challenges before they go out and purchase something, and we can recommend solutions to them, and kind of get in at the ideation phase of addressing these challenges, because there might be tools that other people are using. But also there's a lot of downstream impacts to what they do. If that data is valuable to them, it's valuable to others. We have to democratize that data, especially with machine learning and other technologies that are going to be able to leverage that data. So very similar from that standpoint.
Awesome, thanks. And then Jenna, same question as well to you. I'm curious what Atlassian's looking like.
All right, we have a slightly different approach to shadow IT at Atlassian IT. We don't put a lot of controls in place. We actually think that a lot of the innovation can happen in the fringe of the capabilities that we support. So the apps out there today are going to innovate a lot faster and offer unique capabilities, to Jolene's point, on solving point problems really rapidly. And so allowing teams to purchase and experiment with those apps gives them a chance to figure out what works and what doesn't work before we make a large purchase or move something into our IT space for us to manage. But it doesn't mean we don't want visibility into that. So we do have some things in place that allows us to see what's going on. Like Thomas, we're in tight partnerships with our business teams across Atlassian IT is. And so we're having those conversations, what's working, what's not, what outcomes are they trying to achieve. We can see what tools they're using. We can see what other tools teams are using, and we can bring those across the company and make the decisions around, what's the time is, Miro was an example of something that teams were experimenting with right at the beginning of the pandemic. Whiteboarding was a huge gap for them. And so looking for more richer online experiences for them to collaborate visually was one that came up right away. But there's a whole bunch of examples like that of how these teams are trying to solve for themselves what tools they need in order to be a remote company.
And that makes sense. That makes sense. They're the closest people to the problem, so they're going to want to see. Yeah. So
Frank, just so I make sure I don't get in trouble with my sales team, BetterCloud does have a discover functionality of the product that allows you to discover applications. So
and thank you, Thomas, for that as well. So Jenna, back to you on this next question. Finding a better way to work often means using a wider set of tools across different teams. What are your thoughts that come to mind around consolidating those tools? And is there something you're thinking about that would be important to consider? Again, a lot to unpack in one question.
Yeah. So again, going back to the shadow IT thing, with the proliferation of SaaS tools out there's just so many choices, and teams are. We have a very tech savvy workforce, obviously at Atlassian too, and so they're going to go out there and experiment. Where it gets interesting for me is this something the whole company can use? If we bring it in-house, or in-house, I mean IT, do we get we can get better leverage of that capability? We can probably negotiate with vendors better when I want to purchase it for all of Atlassian. Things are changing really rapidly as well. Even during this pandemic at Atlassian, we continued to hire aggressively to the point where by the end of our fiscal year in a couple of months here, 1 in 4 Atlassians will have been hired during the pandemic.
Wow.
And that's really going to change the landscape of our employees, right? I mean, when you have that mass of people that have never met their colleagues in person, have never been to an Atlassian office, this is just how they work at Atlassian. And so learning and developing new, not just tools, but practices and plays, we call them internally, because our team is really important to us. So we run plays as a team, and we keep making up new ways to work better together. And then the technology should come second, right? How we work together as humans is first. Technology should support that. Once the technology gains pretty good adoption, then we want to look at making that something available for everybody at Atlassian.
Thank you. Makes sense. And Jolene, same question back to you as well, around consolidating tools and what's important to consider.
For Dropbox, we see a couple different things. So similar to what Jenna was saying, we want to give Dropboxers the best possibility for doing the best work, right? Put their best foot forward. So if they want to utilize different fringe tool sets, that's okay too. But we just need to make sure that they follow our security practices before they actually start using the tool. So we make sure it's secure.
That is key.
So we make sure it's secure first. So we have that ability. But we also look at, do we have another tool that can help them across the board? So what we find, especially with distributed teams, is that they may not know that this team over here has already found a solution that might actually be better than the research they've done. Additionally, we're trying to change the conversation. And we want the conversation to be driven in the format of, tell me what challenge you're trying to solve. And through that challenge that you're trying to solve, how are we going to help drive Dropbox forward? So have the conversation first. And as IT, we probably know if we have a tool available. If not, I can put you in contact with someone in a sales organization, or help empower your teams to find something and partner with us versus going off on your own. We can together come up with a simple stack that can empower your work. Now, consolidating tools is the other piece of that, right? So we want to give everybody the flexibility, but also we want to make sure with that flexibility, we don't introduce that additional risk. So we look at the different pieces. Do we have X set of employees that are already using this type of tool? I'll use Atlassian as an example, right? We use Jira. We want to make sure that I don't have 5 other workflow tools or 5 other pieces out there that are competing, so that way we can have our core set of our core set of data all in one space. So it's simple to find. So we allow fringe, but our core pieces that we protect, client data, one of our values is be worthy of trust. So we have to really focus around that. So we guard that first. So client data, Dropbox employee data, and then from there, you can go out and search for different tool sets. But we keep things pretty close when it comes to anything that could infringe on being worthy of trust.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you. So Thomas, what are your thoughts on cloud first to cloud only approach? Is there something you think is important that we should keep moving towards hybrid work environments?
Yeah. So so number one, I think that leveraging best in breed cloud SaaS apps is the fastest way to transform your business. So I'm a huge fan of cloud only. To me, one of the most important things is to create the capability and the repeatable process to leverage these new technologies cross-functionally without creating those data silos or operational silos. And so like going back to our model where we're democratizing the ideas, we make it very easy for people to make recommendations around different software tools. But then we help them leverage that tool across the business. And so that has really just become like a repeatable capability within our organization. It becomes easier every time we implement a new tool. And so, our SaaS application adoption has exploded, but we really feel like we're starting to get more value out of the tools that we're selecting by creating that capability.
Awesome. And Jenna, the same question as well, cloud first to cloud only approach. What's important within that space and moving towards a hybrid work environment?
Yeah, we've been mostly cloud. 99% cloud at Atlassian IT. So it's been our position for a while. We have extremely few things that are actually what I would consider on-prem. And it gives IT, especially in my day job of making sure, our budget's being spent in the right way. Are we making decisions ahead of time when contracts come up for negotiation as things change? Are we able to be nimble with our business decisions? Business is moving so quickly these days. I mean, getting into long-term commitments and things that are hard to get out of just really puts IT in a bit of a deficit with the business in order to have that relationship that says, yes, we can do that, and we can do that pretty rapidly. And cloud, for me, gives us the opportunity to change if we need to. If we're using one thing for a while and the business is rapidly adapting and there's another tool that's going to fit our need better, we can make that change. Back in the day, in order to make that change, IT had to put together pretty complex plans and decommissioning roadmaps and migration roadmaps and big budget asks and whole project teams around that. And then often by the time we actually achieved that, the business probably changed again. We needed to redo it. Cloud gets us out of that. There is still, of course, the work that happens when we make these changes and switch, but it gives us a lot more flexibility to adapt to a really dynamic business landscape.
Thank you. Thank you. So Thomas, on this one, there are lots of new open tools out there that any employee can sign up for. Why is being proactive about scalability and security important, especially when you think about the hybrid work environment?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the security aspect of a lot of risk with data being in a bunch of different applications that we don't really know about. And as people are working from home, it really gets a little bit harder to understand where people are going and what they're doing. So I think that that's one big piece of just being proactive and why we try to, the other piece is just really making sure that some of those tools fit into our ecosystems, that we can leverage the data and integrate them across different applications. So we're making sure that we're not creating like process silos or data gaps with other teams. So that's also very important.
Excellent. So for this part, guys, what I'm going to do is, can you actually share how your company is using Miro today? Who would you say are the teams that serve as good role models of adoption, and where do those new collaboration tools come in at? So let me kind of rephrase this a little bit, because that came out messy. Who would you say are the teams that serve as a good role model for adoption when it comes to new collaboration tools? So I'll actually start with Jenna.
We make collaboration tools, so I would feel pretty bad if other Atlassians are watching this and I call out a team for being the best. It's kind of what we do, and it's pretty. One of the things I love about working at Atlassian is we're very collaborative. We're a values-driven company, and one of our top number one values is to play as a team. And so collaboration tools are the foundation of how that lets us do that.
Do you have a template or something we can see to actually walk us through that, how Miro is used in that fashion?
Yeah, I mean, back to the values, one of our other values is build with heart and balance. And during the pandemic, we've been very aware of not only the burnout, the Zoom burnout that Thomas mentioned earlier, but other challenges. Everyone's dealing with a lot of stress and change right now. And we don't want to ignore that. It's coming out, and we've seen employees have challenges with, adopting to this. The pandemic adds additional stress, and things are so dynamic. Each country might be in a different place. And of course, our teams are global. And so keeping on top of that has been top of mind for us at Atlassian, making sure our employees have some kind of work-life balance. We developed, I mentioned plays earlier. We run a number of plays as teams to check in on each other. We actually make our plays available to the public. We publish those as a playbook on Atlassian.com. If you want to read more about the plays, doing things like team and project retrospectives, running team health monitors, making sure everybody's checking in. But we developed a new play specifically during this time to give us a look and make sure that teams are doing okay as a team, even with all these changing things coming into play. And the template that the play that we built is called Work-Life Balance Play. And we have a board in Miro that facilitates that play to have teams be able to run virtually, globally, that play to check in on their own team health and make sure that that work-life balance, how teams are doing. It's a game based on trust and team awareness to make sure everybody can have a safe place to go and talk. Hey, maybe I'm under a little bit more stress now. Hey, maybe we should be aware of this, what impact this is going to have to our work, and what can we do to change things as a manager to give everybody that balance that they need.
Awesome. And Thomas, can you share how you're using templates with your organization?
Yeah. So, how we're using Miro, a lot of it, I'll give you an example, like the security team. Number one, we looked at Miro as when we went fully remote, we realized that we didn't have great collaboration tools, that the whiteboard was really our number one collaboration tool. And so one of the reasons we adopted it was for that. And as we went into hybrid, into this remote workforce, we really realized there was like the ability to kind of facilitate asynchronous work with Miro. And so, we did this road mapping session with security to where we were actually to kind of start mapping out what we wanted to do. And then we're able to have people on their own time map out like where they wanted their career to go, when they were going on vacation. And then we all came together to kind of figure out like, this is what we're going to try to achieve this quarter. And then asynchronously, once we kind of identified that work, they could actually take those tasks that we wanted to and assign them to their self. And kind of the really the end result of that was that it saved a lot of time. It was asynchronous. We gave people the chance to think about things a little bit more instead of trying to like pack it into a 30-minute meeting or, so giving people that time, it was more fun. And we came out of that session with a lot of buy-in, more so than I would typically see in a road mapping session. So it was very useful for that.
Nice. And Jolene, same question as well. How are you using Miro to work within your environment?
So we just launched Miro. Miro is brand new for us. But I think we identified early the same thing that Thomas identified, which was we need a solution for whiteboarding. Dropbox was such a culture built around human connectivity. And part of the piece that was missing was the whiteboard. We actually did a project and we said, okay, what do we need out of a whiteboarding solution? And we talked to all the Dropboxers and found out what they needed. Part of talking with them was actually part of the program we have called Dropbox on Dropbox, which is how Dropbox uses Dropbox. And we thought we would highlight Miro and really show how to run a program through the board. So we have our program strategies, we have our execution and measures, and really how that ties back to our virtual first toolkit, which we've linked here. So you can see how Dropbox is actually deploying our virtual first strategy globally. But it really pulls together what we want from our strategies, our tactics, our metrics for Dropbox on Dropbox, and ultimately the program, but also our roadmap. It's a single place for us to build a program around Dropbox and the work that we are doing to highlight all of the efforts that we're putting into our virtual first initiative.
Awesome. And thank you all for going through that. We really appreciate seeing how people are structuring it. I'm going to go ahead and move into some of the Q&A questions we had from the audience. Jolene, you're up first. For Jolene, collaboration hours versus focus hours, what was the proportion, and actually, how did you arrive at it?
So based on your time zone or roughly where you're at, we have a 4-hour block where that is our core collaboration hours. So in the Americas, we have one set of hours. In EMEA, we have another set of hours. In APJ, it's just really based on sort of the time zone or geographic area, and it's 4 hours. So that way you can work within your teams, and for those, we're never going to get away from meetings, but it allows us to focus on that. So it's kind of like a 4-4 split. But the thing to understand is that with core collaboration hours, it's only those 4 hours that we really want you as part of that. So for example, after my core collaboration hours, I go and walk my dog. So I get up, I get outside, I go walk the dogs, I come back, and then I'll do some focus time. There are others that use this time. I absolutely love it. I have somebody on my team that bakes with his daughter during this time, and they've created this time in their day to come together that you couldn't do if we were in an office. So really thinking differently and giving that flexibility in your calendar, whereas before you were, on your way to an office, leaving at 7:30, and most of us weren't, or leaving for the office at 7:30 and weren't coming home until sometimes well after that. And now you get so much time back in your day to think completely differently about your calendar. It's no more about, this 8 or 9 or 10-hour block. I have to be focused for these specific 4 hours. Outside of that, if I do really great work at 8 o'clock at night, I can do really great work at 8 o'clock at night, and that's okay.
No, good point. Good point. Open up for the panel. What's onboarding and offboarding look like for your company? What are the new challenges that have been challenges and how have they been adopted? So I guess we'll start with Jenna, because I know that your organization's rapidly changing.
Yes, hiring, like I said, we did not slow down. In fact, we accelerated our hiring. So right away, we needed to solve some onboarding. We had a pretty awesome onboarding experience. Speaking as somebody who went through it in person a few years ago, it really was a great way to get everybody onboarded, understanding our values, our norms, our ways of working, getting them set up, having them meet people. We even participated in give back opportunities when we onboarded, because it's a core part of who we are at Atlassian. So we needed very rapidly, and surprise, we needed to do that during the pandemic, is start onboarding folks and give them that same experience. IT then worked closely with our HR teams to move a lot of our workflows that were a little bit disconnected and make sure we had one streamlined approach so that hiring managers could see the progress of all the work that's happening when we're onboarding an employee. We also took the opportunity to innovate a little bit during the same time. If we were going to do things differently, what can we improve upon? And one of the things that we did to make sure that employees who were onboarded remotely felt like they had a place to go to see what work and what things they needed to do. It's that first 30 days, I think, the first 30 to 90 days when employees are new and they don't know anyone, and you're coming from a world where you were worked and you were busy, and now all of a sudden you're not quite sure how to operate. We wanted them to have a place to go and see all the links they needed to read, and history of Confluence pages that they had to get through. And so we automated a 90-day plan for new hires using Trello. And they can, as a hiring manager, in fact, I just onboarded 2 folks to my team this week, and that 90-day plan right in Trello was created for me. And that gives the employees, here's what to do the first 30 days, and each card in Trello gives them lists of things to read, actions they need to take, etc. I can tweak that and add things specific for their role or for IT as needed. And then they have a place to go and see all those things that they should accomplish as a new hire. And when we did this and we transferred all these and we made this all a virtual onboarding experience, we measure our CSAT of new hires when they go through these onboarding, and it actually went up. So we're pretty proud of that. It's a great experience for our new hires. It's virtual, it's global, and they really love it.
Awesome. And the next question we have is, where do intranets fit within the picture of your organization? How has their use of intranets or internal team communications and collaboration changed in the hybrid environment? We'll start with Thomas on this one.
Yeah, so we've always been cloud only, so maybe not the best question for us. Collaboration has really always happened with different types of SaaS applications.
How about you, Jolene, on your side?
So we're actually in the process of redesigning our intranet. We have 99 plus today, which is fantastic, but when we think about all of the content and information that an intranet, and I almost hate calling it an intranet, right? This is an information, it's a hub of everything that Dropboxers are going to want to need and go to. So we want them to start and end their day with our new version. And we're thinking about it more in a single pane of glass perspective. So you go to a place that could be connected or interconnected with other places. So if I need information on previous all hands, for example, here you go, here's a list of content of all of the previous all hands that we've had. If I would like to see the team recorded meetings or demo sessions, learning content is really important as well. And really building the content in a way that is consumable. You're already remote. You don't want to spend your entire day reading content. We have a fabulous platform with paper and we love content. But what we find is that you need different ways to consume that content. You need video, you need short little pieces of information that link things together, right? Almost like breadcrumbs that take you on the path that you should go. So we're new as we're rebuilding the internet, so we don't have a solution just yet. We just started, but that's kind of how we're thinking about it.
Perfect, thank you. And then the next question we have is, working globally where asynchronous alignment is critical, what frameworks have been put in place to encourage the change management towards a flexible time versus synchronized collaboration? And we'll start with Jenna on this one.
I mentioned the plays that we run. We have tweaked those to be, they're things that we do anyway. We've tweaked those to be more asynchronous as possible. We've also made very conscious decisions as leadership teams to make sure that we're mirroring those things from the top, to show employees that, hey, we're going to do our own leadership staff meetings. Everybody is going to join from Zoom, even if one of our locations are open right now. Those folks are going to join from separate Zoom so that everybody is on the same level in terms of collaboration. We are encouraging as much asynchronous as possible as a leadership team when teams are presenting, if they can do it and send out any documents that can be read ahead of time to give folks an opportunity to collaborate as much asynchronously, so we can limit the number of synchronous time and have richer collaboration happen within the tools. It's captured, it's stored, other people can read it, etc. So it's more about the behaviors and making sure that we're all doing that and showcasing that as much as we can. And it becomes more of the norm quickly once we're doing that. And then again, the technology falls after that. And the technology is just helping us make those behaviors happen globally, digitally.
Perfect. Thank you. And then this one, I'm going to open it up for everyone. Anyone who wants to jump into it. How do you do core collaboration and focus with a global company? And, this is a challenge I'm sure every one of you face, is how do you do this with different time zones, different people working different hours? I see Thomas put his hand up.
I think the key is to try to group people to have, try to match up different core working hours with as many teams as you possibly can. Because if every team has a separate core working hour, then it starts to get hard to get on people's calendars. Because if one team is always in core, core working hours at this time, and this team, across multiple teams, it can be very hard. So trying to create some sort of standard of when that happens, to still leave room for people to actually schedule meetings and collaborate cross-functionally is important.
Perfect. And then, what I'm going to do is kind of wrap up here, but I'm going to go through everybody real quick, just to see, is there something that you feel that was important that we missed that you would like to talk about on closing? So we'll start with Jenna.
One thing is going back to the human aspect of all this collaboration and how we work and the tools that we have to work. I have been very aware since the beginning as an IT person about the impact of this and what we're going through. I remember at the beginning talking to some of our own customers when they were asking us what we were doing during this time, and saying, if you would have came to me as part of my day job and said, we need to plan to make Atlassian a remote company, what would that plan look like for IT? I probably would have said 12 to 18 months to put together let's make everybody fully remote, right? And all the details that went to behind that. We did that in a matter of days, and globally, we did that within a week. We sent everybody home, and we had to support. And it's not just us, right? All IT teams, all companies around the world had to do this. And now that's had a dramatic impact. We've all had to get over that first surprise, you're remote. Now we're going to go into new ways of working. Now we're making decisions, and like Atlassian and Dropbox and others are, to say we're going to be remote first. And I just want to just put the reminder out that that's a massive change. I think we're going to look back on this and say, wow, I can't believe we actually went through that kind of change that quickly. And to be aware of what we're asking employees and each other and peers to go through when we're adopting these new ways of working, it is very different. And it has an impact, right? So everybody has good days and bad days when they're dealing with all the changes going on, but to be very aware of that as humans and the change that we're all embracing. It's not a small amount of change.
No, it isn't. And thank you for that. Thomas, same question, closing thoughts.
Yeah, I would definitely just encourage people to not try to recreate what you're doing remotely. That's definitely huge. And then the other piece is the human aspect of it. I always kind of like to layer on the old Maslow's hierarchy of needs model when we're trying to make sure that we're doing the right things by our employees. So making sure that they feel safe, making sure they feel belong, and then esteem, especially, because that's, if you remove those stressors or ambiguity from people's lives, then it's going to enable them to elevate their thoughts. Making sure they know that we're not going to put them in a situation to where they feel uncomfortable with COVID, and then especially the esteem one is just when coming in remotely, really, really communicating with people, letting them know that they're doing a great job, and over communicating that, because when you haven't met people, in person, it's really, you don't get the body language, you don't get the other indicators that really indicate that that people are pleased with the work you're doing. So over communicate those things.
No, thank you as well. And Jolene, same question.
I think it's really around being conscious about what you make simple and what you make hard. Be reflective on that experience that we're creating. To both Jenna and Thomas's point, we went home a year ago. We told everybody to pick up, go home. we did that, and we did an amazing job at that. Celebrate the win that's tied to that, and the win tied to experimentation. So giving everyone the ability to experiment a little bit. Let's try this. We're saying we don't know, right? The great part about Virtual First is we don't know what we're doing either. We're trying, and we're learning, and we're listening. We're getting that feedback, and we're adjusting based on that feedback. And it's taking that learning mindset tied to really making this successful overall for all of Dropboxers.
Awesome, and thank you. Jenna, Thomas, Jolene, thank you all for joining the panel today.